What's up, folks? The infamous Five Nights at Freddy's movie has finally released, and just like the title of this video says, I am actually a licensed unarmed security guard that works nighttime shifts, surprisingly. But thankfully, I don't guard abandoned buildings with serial killer murdered children possessing animatronics, so I'm doing pretty good, if I don't say so myself, when I'm not rambling about my thoughts to movies and such on the internet for free. This actually isn't the first time I've recorded this video. I've kind of recorded it a few times because every time I record it, I forget something or I screw up something. So we're trying this again, and hopefully I won't forget anything this time. So the FNAF movie. If you don't know what FNAF is, Five Nights at Freddy's is an acronym. It is a video game franchise that has expanded into book, comic book, and now movie format that follows the story of these children who were murdered by a man named William Afton, and their bodies were stuffed inside of these Chuck E. Cheese-esque animatronics, and now their souls possess the animatronic that the bodies were hidden inside of. And the main focus of the story follows a security guard who is working overnight at these locations and now has to survive the night with these animatronics trying to, well, murder them. That's more or less the premise of Five Nights at Freddy's, the franchise. Now, as for this movie, it kind of took the franchise, which the story and lore of the franchise kind of goes all over the place. And I'm not going to act like I'm an expert because I'm not even really a fan of the games or the books in the slightest bit. I've never played any of the games. I've never read any of the books. I'm just a fan of the narrative of itself. So I watch a lot of like game theory videos and stuff like that explaining, the story of Five Nights at Freddy's. And this movie, from what I've learned from seeing all those videos and the breakdowns of the lore, does a good job of condensing the wild, wacky, and ridiculous story of Five Nights at Freddy's and condensing it down into a narrative that someone who isn't a fan of the franchise will probably enjoy. Because the FNAF franchise deals with a lot of weird stuff like ghosts and time travel and moving animatronics and serial killers and all this kind of stuff. So like the movie needed to like figure out what's important, what will tickle the fancy of people who are fans, and what can we do to make this a cohesive narrative that people who aren't fans of the franchise can understand. I think they did a really good job of that. So what's the premise of the movie exactly? I'm glad you asked. Mike Schmidt is a young man who is struggling to maintain a job in order to stop his maniacal evil aunt from stealing custody of his younger sister, Abby, who is a very socially awkward little girl that typically keeps to herself and just draws pictures. Mike has kind of a streak of getting fired from jobs for various different reasons, and he ends up going to someone to get a new job, and it's kind of suspicious why he gets the job, but they offer him a job working at an abandoned pizzeria called Freddy Fazbear's. No one's been in this pizzeria for years after it being shut down due to a bunch of murders of children, and inside the pizzeria there are a few animatronics, and Mike Schmidt is now the guard of this building. His only job is to make sure that nobody comes in until 6 in the morning when his shift ends, and then he locks the doors back. Seems like a simple enough job, but what Mike doesn't know is that the animatronics inside the building are possessed by the children that were murdered and their bodies hidden inside of them that to this day were never found and still reside inside of the animatronics. And there's also a sub-narrative of the entire movie where Mike's younger brother, Garrett, was kidnapped when he was a kid, and he lucid dreams to try and remember what happened to him. And the movie uses this for like horror movie creepy stuff with like the atmosphere being the woods and like weird trippy psychedelic stuff happening. But I will say this movie is not scary at all, and this is coming from a bitch. I am not someone that handles horror very well. I get scared very easily. I don't like jump scares. I hate feeling uncomfortable and creeped out. It just makes me feel icky. And I, to this day, don't understand why people like that feeling. I don't understand why people like being scared. It just doesn't make sense to me. And if you're one of the sickos, like my own father, who gains enjoyment from laughing at people who are scared in movies, you're just evil, bruv. I don't know what else to tell you. But nevertheless, Five Nights at Freddy's isn't scary. I was not scared once in the slightest bit. So if me, a bitch, wasn't scared by the movie, you, someone who likes horror movies, will definitely not be scared by it in the slightest bit. which some fans who are going into this movie being like, oh, bro, it's the new Blumhouse movie. I'm trying to get scared out of my pants. It's not going to happen. Don't ask me why I did that surfer voice for it. I just did it. Don't question it. It happened. We're moving on. So, Five Nights at Freddy's, not scary at all. That's probably why it's being dogged by professional movie critics, because the last time I checked, it had like a 23% on like Rotten Tomatoes versus the 89% that it had as audience score. It's probably changed now because it's been a couple of days since I looked at it. But nevertheless, fans seem to like the movie, critics don't, and I understand both perspectives, because someone who is vaguely a critic and also a fan, I get it. The movie is fun from like an average standpoint. The story works well enough and is concise enough to explain the weird stuff from the franchise, but also tell a narrative that keeps you entertained, but also kind of has a slow start, and it's not scary at all for a horror movie, so I can understand it getting a low rating from critics. Nevertheless, I think it worked out really well. And something that absolutely surprised me about the movie is that this movie is absolutely hilarious. Oh my god. The animatronics are so funny in this movie, because there is a point in the movie before they go crazy and start killing everything where we get to see our main character like interacting with the animatronics, and they just give him the dirtiest looks, the hardest mean mugs, the most bombastic of side eyes I've ever seen, and I could not stop laughing. You'll see what I mean when you get to that point in the movie, and it's absolutely hysterical. I loved every single moment of it. All of them just gave such looks that I wasn't prepared for. I didn't expect them to be in the movie, but they were there, and I'm like, I love this. This is hilarious. 10 out of 10. I love you guys for doing this. And then I guess my only two gripes that I actually have with the movie are regards to the main antagonist of the movie, William Afton, and Vanessa. So I'll start with Vanessa. She kind of fills the role in the movie of the person that lives in the town that knows the weird stuff that happened, but is very vague about it. And I didn't like that one bit, because like Vanessa is someone in the movie who's portrayed as actively trying to help Mike and help him survive being the security guard of Freddy Fazbear's, but she also won't explain to him everything that's wrong, and it drove me insane because I hate when movies are written that way. I understand the reason why you're not disclosing the information, because obviously the movie would end if you explained all the stuff, but I think you need to write the narrative better so that the information can be explained without it ruining the rest of the movie. Because as it stands, it's just like she has every single reason to just tell him everything about this place to get him to quit and leave. But instead, she's just very vague and really weird and creepy and won't explain anything, and then just gets aggressive. It's very uncomfortable. I didn't like seeing it, because I'm just like, just tell him. Just tell him what you want him to know, and he'll probably just do what you want him to do. You're being stupid. And I didn't like that at all. And then in regards to the main antagonist, William Afton, he doesn't have his big reveal until the end of the movie, where he shows up in his like iconic outfit from the games and books. And I liked the confrontation, but I thought it was very short. It was really short-lived, and that's because this movie's fairly short. It's only an hour and 49 minutes, and that's with the credits. So, it didn't have a lot of time for the final confrontation, which I wish it did more with. I feel like if this movie was maybe like 10, 15 minutes longer, maybe even 20, you could have had like a final confrontation that paralleled the games a lot more, with like Mike using the security cameras to spot where the animatronics are, sneaking around the building through the vents and everything like that, and having to come face to face with William Afton. I think that would have been really, really cool. But, as it stands right now, the movie is still fun. I very much enjoyed it. I probably wouldn't have a problem rewatching it if someone wanted to rewatch it. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say about Five Nights at Freddy's. Actually, no, one last thing. The movie made a ton of money. It had a $25 million budget, and over the weekend, when it released, it made $130 million before the weekend was even over. So this movie is definitely going to get a sequel. It's going to expand. It's also on Peacock, so however much people watched it on Peacock and like they spent on like that like partnership or whatever to put the movie on there, or got paid for it, whatever it may be, they're doing fine with money. So they're doing fine. We're definitely going to get more. We're going to get a FNAF movie verse. So if you're someone that enjoyed the movie, good for you. If you're someone who hated the movie, I'm sorry, I guess, just don't spend your money or use your Peacock to watch the future installments in the franchise. That's all I gotta say for you. Now I'm done. So let me know what you thought down below of Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm very curious if you're someone who's a fan, if you're someone who's not a fan. I'm curious to see how you feel the movie really explained itself and fleshed itself out and played out as a film. You obviously know my opinions for what I just said. So, last but certainly not least, I'm the Innocent Villain. Remember, folks, you're innocent to prove villainous, and have a glorious day.